The first Skate burst onto the scene back in 2007 with its analog stick-driven flick-it controls, effectively sending the Tony Hawk franchise into retirement. It was an incredibly realistic take on the sport, but its bag of tricks was a bit empty. 2 years later, Skate 2 remedied that issue and many more, resulting in a much more complete game. Here we are a year later, and Skate 3 is already about to drop in. With so little time in development, is it starting to fall into the same pattern that sent the Hawkman's games crashing to Earth. The story is really taking a back seat in Skate 3. There is one, but after the initial setup, it basically disappears. Already on top of the skate scene and having returned San Vanalona to a ripper's nirvana, it's your job to start your own company and promote it by skating every which way but loose across Port Carverton. In contrast to the previous games, there are no cops or security guards to rain on your parade. As you complete objectives, a board sales tally keeps rolling up, and with each milestone, you're allowed to add a new member to your skate team. These teammates ultimately become your allies in some missions, and while you can change their physical features, clothes, and gear from an impressive list of licensed products, they all technically have the same stats. Skate 2 really packed the house with its list of modes and options. Compared to most sports games that have only been around a couple years, it was impressive, so it stands to reason that there wouldn't be a whole lot added to the design just 12 months later. That is definitely the case, as the one big change comes in the form of a multiplayer campaign. Now your friends can join you in completing both cooperative and competitive missions, and small board sales bonuses are awarded for finishing them off this way. It's decent incentive to be more social with your play, and some missions really shine when playing with humans versus the computer. There's nothing out of the ordinary with the objectives themselves. They're downhill death races, own the spot or lot, film and photography sessions, street and vert contests, one-up where you go head-to-head trying to land the best trick, pro missions where you rub elbows with skating's biggest and brightest, the Hall of Meat where you bail for points, and team-related challenges. With so many board sales to rack up, even a dozen or so objectives eventually run out of steam. This is really just the beginning of what Skate 3 has to offer. You can build your own parks and share them using a simple interface, or create and upload footage to the skate.feed service utilizing a limited editing tool. Best of all, if you appear in someone else's video that gets some traction on the service, you're rewarded with royalties that give you even more board sales. The mission map is both a blessing and a curse depending on your perspective. It allows you to warp to any objective, but it can make the game feel like a string of menus instead of a cohesive whole. Thankfully, the free skate option is there to let you session to your heart's content. As you might expect, selling planks unlocks everything in the game from new spots and missions to clothing and equipment. Skate 3 is definitely stuffed full of options, but other than the rewards you're given for working and sharing with others online, there's nothing here that you haven't experienced in prior skateboarding games. The lack of offline co-op is a blemish, and overall the series is starting to fall into the same trap as other franchises that must endure perennial releases. The biggest complaint with prior Skate releases was the difficulty. It was toned down in Skate 2, eliminating a lot of the challenges that asked you to perform very specific tricks on particular obstacles, and that aesthetic is carried over to Skate 3. You now have 3 different difficulty settings to master, with normal providing little resistance, and the highest setting being just about right. There are definitely some coding snafus here and there, as you'll occasionally complete missions without even doing what the game asks. But overall, it's accessible to a far wider audience. The flick-it controls still feel intuitive and realistic, and with most of the missing tricks from the first game already added in Skate 2, dark slides are the lone noteworthy addition. Because there are only so many ways to move an analog stick, it can still be difficult to pull off the exact trick you want, but that's not really required to move forward. It's a worthy trade-off, as there's no denying the connection that you feel between the controls and what your virtual skater performs on screen. Maintaining your speed while riding ramps and pools is still a challenge, and things get a little too loose when you gain a lot of speed, but otherwise, it's basically found the sweet spot in terms of control and intuitiveness. In Skate 2, you were finally able to leave your board and run on foot, but the controls were absolutely abysmal. This has been vastly improved in Skate 3, and in conjunction with dropping session markers, it makes navigating the environment and completing objectives much less of a headache. Despite all the refinement, Skate 3 is still a fairly complicated game to control. It requires precision timing and features few player assists. That's also what makes it feel so great when you finally get it down. The original Skate held its own where production values were concerned, but Skate 2, and now Skate 3, features minimal visual or auditory enhancements. Utilizing the same engine, you get the same good and the same bad. Animation is still the highlight, with skaters reacting to each jolt no matter how minor, and the tricks look absolutely ace. Unfortunately, it doesn't always hold under the strain of drawing the sprawling environments, and you'll see various anomalies like stickers suspended in midair that pull you out of the experience a bit. The best addition to the presentation is the ability to adjust the default camera to a more pulled-out view, eliminating the issue of not being able to see the terrain in front of your skater. The soundtrack is comprised of almost 50 licensed songs, and the selection runs the gamut. Whether you like hip-hop, punk, indie, or the classics, there's something for everyone. The sound effects really hit the mark with countless varieties of your wheels clacking along the environments, but the voice acting is flat.
Haven't seen you in forever. Actually, I got somebody I'd like you guys to meet. Let's roll over and meet my boy Caleb.
That's what you get when you have real skateboarders voicing themselves. Skate 3 reveals its one-year development cycle in many ways, but it's also the best game in the series. Most of the rough edges have been sanded down to provide a much smoother experience, and providing incentive to play and share with others makes you look at the game in a different light. Yet there's no denying that it's a little too close for comfort to the prior release. If skateboarding is your way of life, then buy without pause, but the more casual player should give it a rent to make sure the enhancements warrant the cost.